Welcome to Verses of the Universe, the Rubaiyat by Omar Khayyam, Spiritual Vintage Part 1 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. Omar Khayyam was a Persian mathematician, astronomer, philosopher, and a poet. He was renowned in his country for his scientific achievements, and a few centuries later he became known in the West through a translated version of his poetry by an English poet. Omar Khayyam was born in 1048 in Nishabur, present-day Iran, where he received his education, which he later continued when he moved to Samarkand in today's Uzbekistan. Later on, Khayyam returned to his hometown, where he taught and worked as an astrologer. A famous invention of his is the Jalali calendar, which became a base for other later calendars and is considered to be more accurate than the Gregorian one. His passion for mathematics, algebra, and geometry inspired many books of his discoveries in the subjects. Yet the most familiar of Omar Khayyam's milestones in the West rests upon his collection of more than 1,000 poems. In the 19th century, the verses were found and translated for the first time into English by the English poet and writer Edward Fitzgerald, who named the edition the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Rubaiyat meaning quatrains. The first edition of the poetry was published in 1859 in London. The rhymed verses reveal a poet who was in deep contemplation in search of the truth about the nature of reality, the universe, and the depth of the human spirit. Today we will have a glimpse of Omar Khayyam's Rubaiyat, where the author's symbolic expressions make the ineffable and abstract inner life revelations easier to comprehend. The most common metaphor used in this poetry collection is wine, which represents the vintage of divine intoxication, a state of pure bliss of the soul, while in meditation on the Most High. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam by Omar Khayyam, interpreter Edward Fitzgerald. Awake, for morning in the bowl of night has flung the stone that puts the stars to flight, and lo, the hunter of the east has caught the Sultan's turret in a noose of light. Dreaming when dawn's left hand was in the sky, I heard a voice within the tavern cry, awake, my little ones, and fill the cup, before life's liquor in its cup be dry. And as the cock crew, those who stood before the tavern shouted, open then the door, you know how little while we have to stay, and once departed may return no more. Now the new year reviving old desires, the thoughtful soul to solitude retires, where the white hand of Moses on the bough puts out, and Jesus from the ground suspires. Iram indeed is gone with all its rose, and Jamshid's seven-ringed cup where no one knows, but still the vine her ancient ruby yields, and still a garden by the water blows. And David's lips are locked, but in divine, high-piping Pelavi with wine, 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 red wine, the nightingale cries to the rose, that yellow cheek of hers to incarnadine. Come fill the cup, and in the fire of spring, the winter garment of repentance fling. The bird of time has but a little way to fly, and lo, the bird is on the wing. Whether at Nashapur or Babylon, whether the cup with sweet or bitter run, the wine of life keeps oozing drop by drop, the leaves of life keep dropping one by one. And look, 1,000 blossoms with the day woke, and 1,000 scattered into clay, and this first summer month that brings the rose shall take Jamshid and Kaikobad away. Well, let it take them, what have we to do with Kaikobad and Kaik Horse Roo? Let Zal and Rustum thunder as they will, or Hatim call to supper, heed not you. With me along some strip of herbage strown, that just divides the desert from the sown, where name of slave and sultan scarce is known, and pity Mahmud on his golden throne. Here with a loaf of bread beneath the bough, a flask of wine, a book of verse, and thou beside me singing in the wilderness, and wilderness is paradise enow. How sweet is mortal sovereignty, think some, others, how blessed the paradise to come. Ah, take the cash and let the credit go, nor heed the rumble of a distant drum. Were it not folly, spider-like to spin the thread of present life away to win? What? For ourselves, who know not if we shall breathe out the very breath we now breathe in. Look to the rose that blows about us, lo, laughing, she says, into the world I blow. At once the tassel of my purse tear, and its treasure on the garden throw. The worldly hope men set their hearts upon turns ashes, or it prospers, and anon, like snow upon the desert's dusty face, lighting a little hour or two, is gone. And those who husbanded the golden grain, and those who flung it to the winds like rain, alike to no such aureate earth are turned, as buried once, men want dug up again. Think, in this battered caravanserai, whose doorways are alternate night and day, how sultan after sultan with his pomp abode his hour or two and went his way. I sometimes think that never blows so red the rose as where some buried Caesar bled, that every hyacinth the garden wears dropped in its lap from some once lovely head, and this delightful herb whose tender green fledges the river's lip on which we lean. Ah, lean upon it lightly, for who knows from what once lovely lip it springs unseen. Ah, my beloved, fill the cup that clears today of past regrets and future fears. Tomorrow? Why, tomorrow I may be myself with yesterday's 7,000 years. For some we loved, the loveliest and the best, that time and fate of all their vintage pressed, have drunk their cup a round or two before, and one by one crept silently to rest. And we that now make merry in the room, they left, and summer dresses in new bloom. Ourselves must we beneath the couch of earth descend, ourselves to make a couch for whom? Ah, make the most of what we yet may spend, before we too into the dust descend. Dust into dust, and under dust to lie, sans wine, sans song, sans singer, and sans end. Alike for those who for today prepare, and those that after a tomorrow stare, a muezzin from the tower of darkness cries, "Fools, your reward is neither here nor there." Why all the saints and sages who discussed of the two worlds so learnedly are thrust, like foolish prophets forth, their words to scorn, are scattered, and their mouths are stopped with dust. O come with old Khayyam and leave the wise to talk. One thing is certain, that life flies. One thing is certain, and the rest is lies. The flower that once has blown forever dies. Myself when young did eagerly frequent doctor and saint, and heard great argument about it and about, but evermore came out by the same door wherein I went. With them the seed of wisdom did I sow, and with my own hand laboured it to grow. And this was all the harvest that I reaped. I came like water, and like wind I go. Into this universe, and why not knowing, nor whence, like water willy-nilly flowing, and out of it, as wind along the waste, I know not whither, willy-nilly blowing. What, without asking, hither hurried whence? And without asking, whither hurried hence? Oh, many a cup of this forbidden wine must drown the memory of that insolence. Up from earth's centre through the seventh gate, I rose, and on the throne of Saturn sate, and many a knot unravelled by the road, but not the master knot of human fate. There was a door to which I found no key, there was a veil past which I could not see. Some little talk a while of me and thee, there seemed, and then no more of thee and me. Then of the thee and me who works behind the veil, I lifted up my hands to find a lamp amid the darkness, and I heard, as from without, the me within thee blind. Then to the lip of this poor earthen urn I leaned, the secret of my life to learn, and lip to lip it murmured, while you live, drink, for once dead you never shall return. Wise viewers, we thank you for your kind presence for today's words of wisdom.